The Eight Immortals Travel East, Chapter 33.
Usually, when we picture high-level military strategy, the image that comes to mind is pretty sterile.
Oh, definitely. Very sanitized.
Right. Like you might imagine a general sitting in a quiet, isolated tent, just calmly moving little wooden blocks across a parchment map.
Yeah, or if you're thinking of a more modern context, you picture a command center, filled with screens.
Exactly. Where warfare is basically reduced to glowing dots and satellite coordinates.
It's a highly sanitized view of conflict. I mean, we tend to filter warfare through this lens of geometry and logistics and, cold, hard calculations.
Yeah.
The human element, the sheer terror of the actual battlefield is just sort of abstracted away into math.
Right. It just becomes math with casualties. But then you step into the world of classical Chinese literature, and suddenly that neat little map is completely ripped to shreds.
Oh, absolutely destroyed.
The tactical landscape we are looking at today is, it's terrifying. It's surreal, and honestly, it defies everything we think we know about how armies are supposed to fight.
It really redefines the whole concept of psychological warfare. What we are examining today is the absolute definition of a theatrical nightmare brought to life on a battlefield.
So our mission today is to crack open this incredibly fascinating excerpt from Chapter 33 of the classical Chinese text Journey to the East.
Also known as Dongjiji.
Right, Dongjiji. And we are going to dissect this massive, ridiculously elaborate military formation created by a character known as Strategist Lu. You have to put aside any conventional ideas of military tactics for this.
Yeah, throw them out the window. This isn't just a clever flanking maneuver hiding in the trees or a well-placed line of archers.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Reading through the sources today, I kept thinking, this reads less like a historical battle plan and way more like a blueprint for an epic fantasy doomsday machine.
That is a perfect way to put it.
It is this mind-bending blend of mechanical engineering, astrology, cosmic roleplay, and just sheer unfiltered psychological terror.
Because the primary objective of the heavenly array isn't just to defeat the enemy's bodies, right? It's meticulously designed to overwhelm them spiritually and mentally, long before a single sword is actually swung.
So let's start with the physical footprint of this thing, because before we even get into the dark magic and the supernatural elements, and trust me, we are definitely heading there.
We're getting there.
We have to establish the sheer logistical scale, like the literal hardware of the array. So how big of a trap are we actually talking about here?
Well, the architecture is just staggering. So Strategist Lu chooses a location near a place called Nine Dragon Valley. And his very first move is to order the construction of 72 elevated command platforms.
Okay, wait. Stop and think about that number for a second. 72 platforms.
Yeah.
And according to the text, each one of those platforms is guarded by 5,000 soldiers. I actually ran the math on that while I was reading the notes.
I bet it's a big number.
It's 360,000 soldiers just standing guard on these elevated stages. And that's before the battle has even truly begun.
Right. It creates this immediate, overwhelming sense of scale. But Strategist Lu doesn't just, place a mob of people in a valley. The entire footprint is highly organized and deeply symbolic.
So,
Well, he builds 5 main altars, right? And each altar flies a specific colored flag. You've got green, yellow, red, white, and black.
okay.
And these altars serve as the anchor points for 72 interconnecting routes, which forms this massive color-coded grid basically across the entire valley.
Which makes sense when you think about classical Chinese cosmology, right?
Yeah.
Those 5 colors aren't just random choices for uniforms. They mean something.
Far from random, they represent the 5 elements, so wood, earth, fire, metal, and water.
Wow.
So from the very first glance, the enemy is looking at an army that has organized itself into the fundamental building blocks of the universe.
And the frontline defense of this cosmic grid is a vanguard called the Iron Gate Golden Lock Array. And the way it's structured is just wild.
It's so rigid.
Right. You have this initial wall of 10,000 spearmen acting as the Iron Gate. And then behind them, 10,000 soldiers wielding arrows acting as the Iron Bolt.
Yeah.
And finally, 10,000 swordsmen acting as the Iron Lock. Together, they are guarding the 21 forwardmost platforms.
Notice the language there, though. It is heavily regimented, perfectly symmetrical, and explicitly metallic. Iron Gate, Iron Bolt, Iron Lock.
Yeah, the best analogy I could come up with while reviewing this is that this vanguard isn't just an army. It's a giant human combination lock.
Not like that.
Every single soldier is just like gear in a massive mechanical trap.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. And think about the psychological impact on the Five-Nation Alliance marching toward this valley.
It's got to be terrifying.
Exactly. When you face an army that is operating like a flawless, unfeeling machine, where every block of 10,000 men is just a tumbling pin in a lock, it communicates this inescapable physical force.
Right.
It tells the advancing army that they are not fighting passionate, flawed men. They are fighting a machine that simply does not make mistakes.
But I'm curious about the mechanics of that, actually. Because isn't a lock, by definition, a static thing? How does an army fight as a lock?
Well, it functions as a funnel.
Okay.
By presenting an unyielding, structured front, a literal iron gate, you force the enemy to try and pick the lock, so to speak.
Oh, I see.
You force them to attack exactly where you want them to, draining their energy against this rigid wall of spears and arrows.
That makes total sense.
But more importantly, the extreme order of this front line is a deliberate psychological setup. It lulls the enemy into expecting a conventional, albeit highly organized, battle.
Right, which makes the chaos waiting behind that locked door so much more devastating. Which brings us to the next layer of the trap. Because once you get past that rigid mechanical front line, once you crack the combination, lock the array, completely transforms.
It's a total shift in tone.
It really is. It stops being a machine and turns into this living, breathing map of mythological beasts designed to surround the enemy.
Yeah, we move away from the realm of metallic engineering and plunge straight into mythology. The flanks of the army are organized to represent the 4 auspicious beasts.
And the details here are just, they're crazy. On the left flank, you have the blue dragon array.
Right.
And the troops don't just, wave a banner with a dragon painted on it.
Well, they become the dragon.
Exactly. They actively role-play the anatomy of the dragon. You have 10,000 troops holding black flags, and their specific job is to physically represent the dragon beard.
This is an insane image.
And then another 10,000 swordsmen are split into 4 distinct units to act as the 4 dragon claws.
And then mirroring them on the right flank, you have the white tiger array. Again, 10,000 swordsmen form the tiger body, while 10,000 soldiers with short spears make up the tiger claws.
And to close the trap entirely, the front and back of this intersection are commanded by forces representing the vermilion bird and the black tortoise,
forming a massive pincer movement.
Right. But I really have to push back on this tactically because visualizing it seems almost absurd.
Really? What part of it strikes you as absurd?
Well, okay, if I'm a cavalry commander for the Five-Nation Alliance, right, and I break through the front lines, only to see 10,000 guys trying to arrange their swords to look like a literal dragon's claw or a tiger's body,
Yeah.
I'm just going to charge right through the gaps. From a pure combat perspective, choreographing tens of thousands of troops to physically resemble body parts sounds incredibly vulnerable.
I can see why you'd think that.
It feels like a terrifying, weaponized Olympic opening ceremony. But is it actually effective warfare?
Well, if you were judging it by standard, linear tactical manuals, sure, it might seem vulnerable. But you have to understand the logic of the universe this text operates in.
Okay, explain that.
This isn't just about men trying to stab other men. The theatricality itself is the weapon. In this cultural context, mapping the cosmos directly onto the battlefield is a profound claim of power.
So it's about intimidating the enemy by claiming you have, the universe on your side.
It goes much deeper than simple intimidation, actually. By taking the physical shape of the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise, Strategist Lu's army is claiming to literally embody the fundamental forces of nature.
Oh, wow.
The beasts represent the cardinal directions, east, west, south, and north. They represent the seasons.
Okay, that changes things.
Right. When an enemy soldier is surrounded by this, they aren't just fighting an opposing infantry. They are forced to feel as though they're fighting the very shape of the earth itself.
Man, that is heavy.
It elevates a mortal political conflict to a state of cosmic inevitability. The logic is, you cannot defeat the changing of the seasons, so how can you defeat this army?
Okay, I see. So it's about crushing their morale by making the enemy feel completely insignificant.
Exactly.
The front line is an iron machine. The flanks are these massive, earthly mythological beasts. But if the flanks are earthly, the center of this array ascends even higher.
Yes, it elevates the battlefield to the heavens themselves.
We enter the Hall of Universal Light, which serves as the celestial core of the heavenly array.
And the casting for this cosmic roleplay is just intense.
So intense. Right in the center, you have the Golden Dragon Prince acting as the Jade Emperor, who is the supreme ruler of heaven in Chinese theology.
Okay.
And beside him is Madame Dong, playing the role of the goddess Li Shan Laomu. They are literally staging a divine court right in the middle of a war zone.
And the troops surrounding them are tasked with maintaining this massive celestial illusion. You have troops dressed in those 5 specific cosmic colors we mentioned earlier, representing the 5 Dipper Star Lords.
Yeah.
You have commanders arranging their troops into the shape of a tortoise and a snake, which is the traditional guardian symbol of the North Heaven Gate.
And the text also mentions 28 specific soldiers, just 28 men, but their instruction is incredibly unique.
Right, the wild hair.
Yes. They are ordered to leave their hair completely disheveled, wild, and unkempt.
So those 28 soldiers represent the 28 lunar mansions, which are essentially the Chinese constellations.
Well, why the wild hair? Why not just give them the banner or something?
Because wild, unkempt hair in this context represents untamed cosmic energy.
Oh, interesting.
It visually communicates the raw, shifting nature of the stars. It's a brilliant visual cue that they have transcended the rigid, metallic discipline of the front line.
And speaking of transcending discipline, we have to talk about how they represent the sun and the moon.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Because this is where the heavenly array takes a severely dark turn. Like, up until now, it's been grand and majestic. But for the sun, you have troops dressed entirely in red robes.
Sure, makes sense.
But for the moon, you have a commander named Huang Qingqium leading a unit of female troops wielding swords. But Huang Qium doesn't just play the moon. She plays something called the moon comet, or the Bobby star.
The inclusion of the Bobby star is where the array shifts from cosmic intimidation to absolute nightmarish psychological warfare.
Yeah, the text's description of her role is deeply unsettling.
Unsettling is putting it mildly.
Unsettling doesn't even cover it. The instructions are that Huang Qingqiu is to stand completely naked under a flag, holding a human skull.
Yeah.
And when the battle begins, her specific role is to weep and wail.
Right.
Just imagine the sound of that echoing across a battlefield.
It is a profoundly jarring image.
It completely shatters the entire vibe we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about.
It really does.
I mean, we started with an Iron Gate Golden Lock, a calculated, unfeeling combination lock. Then we had the organized majesty of the mythical beasts. And now, at the very center, the core of the operation, we have a naked woman wailing with a skull.
It's quite the contrast.
We go from absolute metallic order to complete madness. How does this serve a military purpose?
It serves the ultimate military purpose, which is shattering the enemy's reality. This array weaponizes taboo and sensory overload.
Taboo. Right.
Put yourself in the boots of an enemy soldier who has managed to fight their way to the center. First, you face an unyielding wall of iron. Then you are surrounded by tens of thousands of men mimicking giant roaring beasts.
Right. You're already exhausted and terrified.
Exactly. You finally break through to the command center expecting to find a general giving orders.
And instead, you find a grotesque, surreal distortion of everything you understand. A crying woman with a skull.
It induces absolute paralysis. The strategist Lisa Liu understands that breaking an enemy's physical lines is only half the battle. If you can introduce such a jarring, transgressive image, nudity, death, and uncontrolled emotional wailing right in the middle of a highly structured military formation, you rip the ground out from under the enemy's psychological footing.
It causes panic because it defies all the expected rules of combat.
Exactly. The enemy soldier doesn't know how to react because his brain literally cannot process what he is seeing.
You can't use standard sword tactics against a nightmare.
No, you can't.
They are actively trying to make the enemy feel like they've lost their minds before the real fighting even starts.
And that psychological manipulation is just the primer. It softens the enemy up for the absolute grim peak of the array, which lies in its final layer.
Right, because if the center was about breaking your grip on reality, this final section is about ripping out your soul. Literally.
Yeah, we're moving away from theatrical illusions and stepping into the realm of actual dark magic.
The text refers to this final defensive layer as the soul-confusing array.
And visually, they dress this section up in the most pristine, sacred imagery possible.
Which is so messed up when you know what's underneath it. They take 5,000 troops and dress them in kasayas, which are traditional monk robes.
Right.
And they are accompanied by 500 actual foreign monks. They have another commander leading thousands of physically imposing monks holding rosaries, pretending to be the actual Buddhas of the Western Thunder Monastery.
And to completely sell the illusion, 500 more monks act as arhats, enlightened, perfected beings stationed at the gates. The text explicitly states that their purpose is to swallow the enemy's majesty.
So, on the surface, you are being attacked by an army of Buddhas. You have enlightened monks chanting with prayer beads.
Which is terrifying in a different way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
For a soldier in that era, attacking a Buddha would feel like a direct ticket to damnation. But the engine powering this entire section, like the battery running the whole thing, is horrifying.
The dark magic beneath the holy veneer.
Yes. Beneath those beautifully colored flags, they secretly bury 7 pregnant women, upside down.
Yeah, the text strongly implies a gruesome sacrifice there.
And their purpose is to use forbidden blood magic to literally drain the enemy's spirit and life energy during the clash.
It is a profound and incredibly deliberate contradiction. And it is the ultimate trap of the heavenly array.
It's like a weaponized haunted house. They are cloaking themselves in this pristine, holy imagery, Buddhas, monks, enlightenment, but the foundation of it is the darkest, most forbidden magic imaginable.
Strategist Lu is using the visual illusion of ultimate divine authority to paralyze the enemy with awe and religious hesitation. No soldier wants to strike down an enlightened being.
Obviously not.
But while the enemy is hesitating, paralyzed by the holy aesthetics, the actual mechanism of victory relies on gruesome, subversive, demonic tactics, draining their life force from below.
It is incredibly cynical. It means the commanders know the holy imagery is just a prop.
It is deeply cynical. But it highlights a major recurring theme in classical lore and ancient concepts of total war.
Which is?
In the pursuit of absolute victory, nothing is sacred. The line between divine right and demonic practice is entirely porous. Strategist Lu's array uses the aesthetics of heaven, but it fights with the ruthless, forbidden tools of hell.
It makes you completely reconsider how these classical stories viewed the concept of power.
The heavenly array isn't just a quirky military formation. It is a thesis on what overwhelming force truly looks like.
Let's pull all of this together, because the journey through this array is just staggering. Strategist Lu's creation is an absolute masterpiece of fictional warfare.
It really is.
It draws the enemy in by starting as a rigid mechanical trap, the Iron Gate Golden Lock acting as a human combination lock.
Then, as the enemy pushes deeper, the rigidity dissolves, and it evolves into a massive surrounding zoo of mythical beasts. The dragon, the tiger, the bird, and the tortoise, forcing the enemy to fight the earth itself.
Then it forces you to look up, ascending into a celestial map featuring the Jade Emperor and wild-haired constellations.
Yeah.
It weaponizes cultural taboo, throwing a wailing naked woman with a skull at you to break your grip on reality.
And finally, when the enemy is completely disoriented, exhausted, and terrified, it descends into horrifying dark magic, hiding a soul-draining blood curse beneath the serene chanting faces of thousands of fake Buddhas.
It systematically dismantles the attacking army physically, cosmologically, psychologically, and then spiritually. It is incredible.
Unparalleled psychological warfare.
And it brings us back to where we started. Remember that quiet general we talked about? The one moving wooden blocks on a sterile map?
The modern sanitized view of war where everything is a calculated metric?
Right. Contrast that sterile map with the absolute psychological nightmare we just explored. It leaves me with a thought I want you to mull over today.
Oh, what's that?
We live in an era where modern armies are entirely dependent on screens, hyper-rational AI algorithms, and drone strikes.
Yeah.
We've optimized warfare to be as mechanical as that Iron Gate.
Yeah.
But if the ultimate weapon in classical literature wasn't a sharper sword, but rather the ability to completely shatter the enemy's perception of reality using taboo, horror, and spiritual dread, how would a hyper-rational, tech-dependent modern military handle an enemy that fights like Strategist Lu?
That's a fascinating scenario.
Are modern systems completely blind to warfare that attacks the human psyche rather than just the grid coordinates?
That is a deeply unsettling but very necessary question to consider as technology continues to evolve.